Thank you very much, Jake. Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here in Rotherham, in the Magna Centre, which is of course, the plural of magnum, which, as everybody knows, is the Latin for ice cream. And great to be at the biggest ever convention of the North. Only right that we're meeting here on the banks of the Don, literally in the crucible that forged the history of this nation and indeed of the modern world, when Nelson defeated the French at Trafalgar and set this country on course for about 100 years of imperial expansion. The cannons of HMS Victory were forged here at Walker & Company. It was Rotherham pipes that brought fresh drinking water to Hong Kong, Rotherham steel that clad Brunel's Great Eastern and formed the skeletons of New York skyscrapers. And did you know that every fire hydrant in New York was cast in British steel less than 2 miles from here at the works of Guest and Crimes? And that was before anybody in America thought to put tariffs on British steel. This place where we meet was in fact so central to our national life that it was bombed in both the First and the Second World Wars. And so it's entirely fitting that 50 years ago, the works here at Templeborough adopted as its logo the phoenix, perpetually rising from the ashes. And across this region, you can feel that phoenix-like transformation as the northern powerhouse, which Jake just spoke so eloquently, thrums into life with a low-carbon, fuel-efficient roar. Look at Catcliffe, where a factory that once made superb glass is now being used to turn, used by McLaren to turn super light, super strong Yorkshire carbon fibre into the fastest production cars on Earth. Right next door, at the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, Xeros Technology are producing the world's most environmentally friendly washing machine. That's the spin, and I bet it's true. Boeing chose Sheffield as its first civil aerospace factory in Europe, with nearly half its apprentices taken on, half its employees taken on as apprentices. And did anybody have a bagel this morning? Did you? No? Well, if you did, it was probably made just up the road in Mexborough, where the largest bagel factory in Europe produces fully 3/4 of the bagels eaten in Britain every day. Sheffield is the home of the UK's largest provider of hybrid and electric vehicle drive systems, a company called Magtech, a world-first initiative. Magtech is retrofitting Sheffield's refuse lorries with battery power with enough juice to negotiate the Seven Hills and recharge themselves with energy they generate from the very rubbish they collect. Rubbish-powered rubbish vans. There's a joke there somewhere, which I'm going to leave it to you to work out. I tell you, there is no limit to the imagination, innovation, and ingenuity of the leadership in the North. And I have a profound belief that talent and genius are uniformly distributed around the UK, but opportunity is not. And that is why we need to level up across our amazing country. And we need investment in education, the giant precondition that determines whether you have the freedom and confidence to make the most of your talent. So this government will give every child the world-class education they deserve. We're levelling up across the country, investing an extra 14 billion over 3 years and increasing the minimum level of funding for every pupil in primary and secondary schools. We're backing the teachers who change our lives. We're putting up salaries for new teachers, funding pension increases, and giving teachers the backing they need to deal with disruptive pupils. We cannot afford any longer the chronic underfunding of our brilliant FE colleges, which do so much to support young people's skills and our economy. And I think it's absurd that employers have been driven to import so much skilled labour from abroad, in large part because of the vocational failures of vocational training in our own country. We have a world-class universities sector. We should be very, very, very proud of it. But it's time we aspired to the same status for our further education institutions, to give everyone the opportunity to express their talents. And of course, education is not enough on its own. You need to be able to connect with other people, to get that job interview, to find that customer. And so we in this new government are supporting gigabit broadband. Gigabit broadband, which is a lot, I understand. Gigabit broadband for every home by 2025, 8 years earlier than previously promised. And they can do it in Spain. If they can do it in Spain, why can't we do it in the UK? And we have a new, stronger town fund, £3.6 billion stronger town fund, so that local people can invest in libraries, parks, youth clubs, areas, places to bring people together. And that kind of intervention cannot be directed by central government. So let's be frank about what we're trying to do. What is needed most of all, in addition to the technology, the infrastructure that we're supplying, the education that we're supplying, it's of course local leadership, trusting people to take back control and run things in the way that they want to. Because, of course, central government cannot abdicate responsibility, but only local champions can really make the difference for their towns and their communities. I'm the first Prime Minister since Clement Attlee to have been a mayor. And I think I'm right in saying that. And I know the transformative potential of local accountable leadership. Someone with the power to sort out what matters most to local people. Like our MPs, Boris. Yes, indeed. Indeed. Yeah. Yes, I'm all in favour of our MPs.
Yeah, why are you not with them in Parliament?
Would you?
The mess that you have created.
Would you mind? I'm very happy to get back to Parliament very soon. But what we want, I think, to see in this what we want to see in this region is towns and communities able to represent that gentleman and sort out his needs, and whether it's transport to get to work or good housing or whatever it happens to be, and somebody to drive big infrastructure projects, to boost investment, to wave the flag for the area, to act as a local champion and say, come and invest here. But of course, along with that power comes responsibility and accountability. And it's time we gave more people a say over the places where they live. We're going to do devolution properly. We're going to maximise the power of the North with more mayors across the whole of the North. And I know there's a real enthusiasm for devolution in Yorkshire, and I welcome the establishment of a Yorkshire committee as a practical step for facilitating greater collaboration on a Yorkshire-wide basis. In the meantime, we are committed to getting the Sheffield City region done, and I also want to open up negotiations with Leeds and West Yorkshire so we can make a mayor work there too, whatever the nature of any longer-term arrangements in Yorkshire. But I also want to build on the fantastic job so many mayors are already doing and ensure you can deliver on ambitious commitments to your communities. And that will mean levelling up powers for existing mayors. And to make sure our great northern powerhouse is firing on all its cylinders, to champion investment and opportunity, we are going to work with leaders across the north, the mayors, local businesses and others, to create a new, stronger northern powerhouse growth body. It will be a genuine partnership across the region, led by a northerner chosen in close consultation with you. Led by, I imagine, there's a process to work out who's going to do it, but anyway, it's going to be done in close consultation with you. But if there is one field that can change people's lives for the better, one field of policy, and level up opportunity, one field of policy that, in my view, must now be devolved, that policy is transport. Nearly 200 years ago, this country invented a machine that went on to unite great services of great areas of Great Britain. It spread its iron web across the earth and it transformed everywhere it touched. The north of England gave the world the railway. And at a time when the rest of the human race could travel no faster than a galloping horse, 40,000 people watched as Locomotion 1 puffed its way like some fire-breathing beast along the tracks between Stockton and Darlington in 1825. It was ours, a world first, the common ancestor of both the McLaren and the rubbish-eating dustcart I just described. And yet, 2 centuries later, in this birthplace of the railways, we can do so much better. Today, coming from London on the train, it took me just over an hour and a half to get to Doncaster. But if, for example, you travelled from Liverpool to Rotherham, less than half the distance, you might have had to leave an hour earlier than me and change as many as 3 times. Your journey may have been on 2- and 3-carriage trains, some of them built in the early 1980s with a body designed for a bus and maybe bus seats too. I love buses, but not when they're supposed to be trains. When I was in Yorkshire last week, I reaffirmed my commitment to Northern Powerhouse Rail, and I eagerly await your plans. And before we get on with a project of that scale, I deeply believe in the absolute importance of everyday, ordinary transport that people rely on. There are some terrific local transport services in the north, from Manchester's trams and Merseyrail, the most punctual railway in Britain, to the Tyne and Wear Metro. And there has been some very significant government investment, with 2,000 additional services now operating each week, 500 million on new trains, 100 million on the refurbishment of the rest, including Wi-Fi and power sockets, and as well as the electrification of the railways in the northwest. And the pacers will be gone within months. But the overall picture is still patchy. All too often, Northern England has to put up with old diesel trains running once or twice an hour from stations where the only form of welcome is on the platform is, yes, a bus shelter. William Wordsworth campaigned furiously against the railway coming to the Lake District. Last year, during the timetable meltdown, Northern and Network Rail gave him his wish. And what is the difference between those, the superb services I've described, like Merseyrail, Tyne and Wear Metro, the Manchester Metro link, and the ones that let you down far too often? Well, partly the answer is money, but the other difference is what? Accountability. Right answer from the mayors in the front. Each of those well-run services is run by or on behalf of locally elected politicians, and they are always going to care more about their trains and trams than someone in Whitehall. London was just the same. Before 2000, when London Transport was run by central government, the tube was frankly shabby and neglected. But when my predecessor and I ran it as London Mayor, services improved, though I can't speak for the current incumbent. So today, I'm announcing my intention to give the railways of the north back to the people of the north, back to the places where they were born, back to Stockton and to Darlington, back to Liverpool and Manchester. In the combined authority or joint transport committee areas in the northeast, West Yorkshire, Sheffield City region, Greater Manchester, Liverpool City region, it's time for the north to run its own trains. Keith Williams, who's leading a review of the railways for us, has, I think, been in touch with most of the people concerned. On local lines in metropolitan areas, we will give greater control over fares, service patterns, rolling stock, and stations. And outside the combined authority areas, I want communities to take control too. That might be through county councils taking on similar roles in their areas for stations or branch lines, or it might be by transferring local branch line and rural services to community rail partnerships owned by local people. And, as you have asked, we will give you far greater control over your budgets. But as well as taking power, this is the kicker, you have to take responsibility. That means alongside taking the credit, you'll be taking the heat, just like a mayor has to in London. Nobody blames the government for the problems of the Central Line, they blame the mayor of London. Now, we will be generous on capital spending, but we won't be able to afford everything everyone wants. So choices will have to be made. And if you people want more than they can afford, then they will have to raise the money themselves. And of course, the North's railways must still be part of the national network, which passengers tell us that they want, with many trains obviously running across the boundaries of the region. So there has to be still a role for the centre. This will be a partnership between the railways and the leaders of the North. And I think it's a formula that can work and that will deliver better services for the people of this country. And that is how we do it. That's how we level up and unleash the talent of the whole country. Better education, gigabit broadband, sprouting in every home, reliable, comfortable and affordable transport with someone accountable delivering your service. These are the pumping pistons that will drive the Northern Powerhouse, and that Northern Powerhouse is turning before our eyes into a new locomotive for the UK economy. 2 centuries ago, this region literally became the engine that propelled the world to new discoveries and new horizons, bringing people together, bringing countries together, and bringing new opportunities for everyone. That is what the Northern Powerhouse can achieve in the 21st century, and this is a government that will back you to deliver it. Thank you very much.
So, Prime Minister, I think you are going to take some questions, and I am going to introduce some questioners from the floor. First of all, from BBC Look North, is James Vincent ready with his question, please?
Thank you very much. Welcome to Yorkshire again, Prime Minister.
Thank you, sir.
You've been up here a few times already, telling us that you'll do Northern Powerhouse Rail, telling us that you'll give us more police officers, and now telling us you'll give us more power to do great things in the North. But can you do any of that? Because you can't get an election. This sounds like election promises and an election tour, and you can't get an election and you can't get Brexit done at the moment. How are you going to achieve that?
Well, we are going to, I certainly won't be deterred by anybody from our goal of coming out of the EU on October the 31st, which is, I think, what the people of this country want us to do, and they want us to get Brexit done. I believe they do. But I also won't be deterred from getting on with our domestic agenda. And I think the people of this country also want to hear, yes, it is absolutely true that the opposition parties don't particularly want to have an election, nor do they want to deliver Brexit, and I have to face that reality at the present. But what people want is to hear how we're going to get on and deliver on their priorities. And that is what we're going to do. So I think it is entirely relevant to come not just to the North, but to all parts of the country and say how we're going to deliver 20,000 more police on the streets and what we are doing to invest in our hospitals. And yes, I'm a passionate believer in devolution and in giving power to strong local leaders to champion their areas and to be accountable for their transport networks, because that, I think, will produce better results for the people of this country. So whatever the shenanigans that may be going on at Westminster, we will get on with delivering our agenda and preparing to take this country out of the EU on October the 31st. And there will be ample time for Parliament to consider the deal that I very much hope to do at the EU summit on October the 17th and 18th. And there will be ample time, as the gentleman, I think, was the gentleman who was who left prematurely, not necessarily under his own steam. That is the answer to his question. We've lost in this. But to have a Queen's speech and to set out our domestic agenda, I don't think people realise we've lost about 4 days of parliamentary sitting time. There is ample time for Parliament to consider not just Brexit, but all kinds of things, both before and after the European Council on October the 17th. So let's get on and do it.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I think we're going to hear from Joe Pike from ITV Yorkshire now.
Thank you. Prime Minister, if you really do believe that domestic abuse shatters lives, why have you delayed the domestic abuse bill by not carrying it over when Parliament prorogued? And can you promise the campaigner Claire Throssell, who's fought so hard on this, that the same bill that she fought for, you will bring in front of Parliament?
Yes, I can. I mean, the bill, so thank you. The bill is going, I think I said yesterday, or possibly the day before, that the bill is certainly going to be carried over. The domestic abuse bill will be right there in the Queen's speech, along with many other measures.
Thank you. David Parker, the Rotherham Advertiser.
Welcome to Rotherham, Prime Minister. A few months ago, you said in a radio interview that lots of local police forces were spaffing money up the wall. Is that something you still believe on investigations of historic CSE?
Well, that's actually not what I said, but what I certainly can say is I think all such investigations certainly here are extremely important. And but the point I was making is that we do need to be backing our police to be fighting crime, and that's why we're investing in 20,000 police out on the streets and putting about a billion more into policing. And just for ease of reference, I noticed a sort of ripple of support for the idea of staying in the EU beyond October the 31st. Just to remind you, folks, in case you really think that's a good idea, it involves spending another £1 billion a month of taxpayers' money to stay in the EU. I'd frankly rather spend £1 billion of taxpayers' money on putting 20,000 police officers on the streets. That's my judgment. Anyway, if the opposition have a different view, why don't they put it to the people? That's
David Walsh, I think, from the Sheffield Star.
Welcome, Prime Minister. Sheffield business and arts leaders have today launched a culture collective to improve the city's cultural offer and help grow the economy. It's in the Sheffield Star. They agree Sheffield has been underfunded compared to comparable cities. Is it something you will support with funding? Well,
I've just put 3.6 billion into a towns fund, which I don't think necessarily Sheffield qualifies for. But I'm just to say that we're spending huge sums today, and I don't want to make another spending commitment at the moment. But I will certainly happily study the request that has been made. If there is any way that we can support the cultural initiative in Sheffield that you describe, then I will certainly make sure that we do. But I'm reluctant to make more extempore spending commitments from this platform.
The Yorkshire Post, Geraldine Scott.
Prime Minister, you spoke about devolution deals in Leeds and West Yorkshire. The people of the North have waited for a long time. So when do you think this is going to happen? And is it going to lead for a deal for the whole of Yorkshire?
Well, we will get on as fast as possible, and whether it leads to a deal for the whole of Yorkshire or not, I mean, that is very much a matter for consultation and decision by local people. I know that there are different views, and I've been speedily acquainted of those different views and the strength of feeling which is held on either side. And I think it therefore right that local people should consult and decide on that matter for themselves. There are clearly There are clearly different areas that could elect a mayor, and I think that there needs to be further work done on that precise geographical division.
Manchester Evening News, Jennifer Williams.
Prime Minister, you mentioned the Stronger Towns Fund in your speech. I've done a bit of analysis looking at which towns have received money from that, and most of them are marginal seats that the Conservatives either need to win from Labour or need to defend from the Liberal Democrats, including some of the most marginal seats in the country. Well, are you trying to buy votes using that fund?
Look, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Conservatives were in contention in every seat in the country. I can't be remotely surprised that some of the towns in question might shortly have a Conservative MP. If you'll kindly furnish me with the analysis that you've done, I'll be happy to answer you. But what we want are stronger towns across the UK. We want to use the cash to help people, local people, wherever they are, to level up and to invest in wonderful things for their communities, to improve public amenities, to help to put in broadband, and to bring life to their communities. That's what we want to do, and I think it's a great thing for every town in the country. And I'm not aware of any political bias involved in I'm genuinely not aware of any political bias involved in the dispersing of those funds, and it sounds like pure cynicism to suggest otherwise. Seriously, I mean.
Kevin Larkin, BBC Radio Leeds.
Prime Minister, you've already committed to Northern Powerhouse Rail. You've made another announcement this afternoon about our local rail services. When you launched your leadership campaign, you said it was madness. Leeds doesn't have a mass transit system. Will you commit to it today? And if so, when can we get the details?
God. Well, it may well be that I was exactly right in what I said about Leeds, and I think it is right. But as I said in answer to the question about arts funding in Sheffield, I want to do it. And I certainly think that it is important that a great city like Leeds should have a mass transit system. But I'm not going to commit today to a budget for it. What I think I could commit to doing, because it's a really good question, is to going back to talk to Grant Shapps and our transport team and our railways team and to see what's cooking and what we could do to support. Because it is in my view, it leads by comparison by most other European cities is not well provided for with mass transit, and we need to be doing something about it.
And finally, Prime Minister Paul Brand from ITV.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister.
Good afternoon, Paul.
You've got 5 weeks left to get a Brexit deal. Can you update us on what you think is the latest probability of finding an agreement that the DUP can get behind? And secondly, you called David Cameron a girly swat. Are you a little bit worried what he might call you in his upcoming memoir?
Well, Paul. First of all, on where we are with Brexit, I think people do deserve to know what's going on. We're working incredibly hard to get a deal. There is the rough shape of a deal to be done. As some of you may have seen, I've myself been to talk to various other EU leaders, particularly in Germany, in France, and in Ireland, where we made a good deal of progress. I'm seeing President of the Commission and the Chief Negotiator, Michel Barnier, on Monday, and we'll talk about the ideas that we've been working on, and we'll see where we get. I mean, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. How is that a good enough characterization, Paul, of where we are? I'm cautiously optimistic. And on your second question, which was about, but whatever happens, we will come out on October the 31st. Your second question about David Cameron. Well, look, I mean, absolutely nothing. I want people to be clear. Absolutely nothing that David Cameron says in his memoirs in the course of the next few days will diminish the affection and respect in which I hold him. Not least for what he did in turning this country round, after Labour left it bankrupt, by the way, and delivering a jobs miracle in the UK with record low unemployment. I think he has a very distinguished record and a legacy to be proud of. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Well, it's true. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.